explain a little bit to me, because I think diet culture, I know with like even my parents and I think their parents, you see the different generations, you kind of have a different spin on what health looked like and what healthy eating looked like and kind of that diet culture, what dieting looked like. Where does that stem from, and what have you seen as like really helping destigmatize or helping kind of fix that?
That problem.
Yeah, that problem.
Yeah. So most people, unfortunately, we actually had an intern. She was doing her master's thesis on eating disorders specifically, and she thought it had to do with low income housing.
Interesting.
Or single moms.
Yeah.
But what she found across the board was that it had to deal with the mom.
Really?
So we get a lot of our feelings about food, thoughts about food from our moms specifically. They just have such a big influence. And so that's why you see this generationally. Like when we have someone come into the office, if they're a certain age, I already know what myths or issues that they're going to have based on the culture and the era they were born in, right? So the low-fat era actually stayed around for a really, really long time, which is fascinating. So then it's been passed on generationally. And so it's really interesting because you have, even people in their 30s who still believe that low-fat is the way to go. Right? Because that's what their mom did, right? And I'm not going to blame... the 80s, but Jane Fonda kind of, that was a low-fat era. You wanted to look thin like Jane Fonda, and everything was low-fat. And so it really stems from that. And it's really fascinating how it just generationally passes on. And so the way you break that is you have to know that there's something different, right?
Right.
And I really firmly believe that we have the power to choose. We don't have to do what our parents did.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but you have to know that, right?
Right.
Like there's even a vast difference between my brother and I. Like he kind of just did what my parents did. And I was like, you don't have to. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's just educating yourself. And when people come in, it's reframing it, letting them know like what the myth is, how to reframe that, and using techniques like reframing negative thoughts and things like that to kind of help them push through that, but then educating them. Because the other problem too is you go on Google.
Right.
Google, it's all conflicting, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what like sparked my interest in nutrition in general, was that there is this conflicting information. It's like, how do you decipher that?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's like when they come to us, it's like, this is how you decipher it. Let's give you the evidence-based things so that way you can move forward and know what you need to be doing and have forgiveness for yourself that you didn't do it perfectly, that you weren't, 100% accurate in that, And so it's really just debunking a lot of myths and then, giving them the evidence. And most of the time they believe us. So they're not like, here, show me the research, but we're happy to show them or share the research with them. Yeah. But really, when we're dealing with people, we gain their trust, right? Like we build that relationship so they know that we care. And if we don't know the answer, then we'll go look for it. But if they need that information, it's fine. They just need somebody that they trust to give them the correct information.
Right.
Because Google's going to give them 50 different things.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you find that, and maybe since they're already coming to you and working with you, they've already kind of overcome that first hurdle, but do you ever find at times that you're kind of fighting on some of those beliefs, or you have to, like they might kick back a little bit going, no, that's not what do you do with that when that happens? Because like the low fat era, right? I've heard that before, and I think my parents have said that before, where they're like, yeah, that was like the whole thing. You got that low fat thing, even though it's just a bunch of chemicals and nothing good for you.
Right.
So yeah, what do you do when you meet that resistance? Because a lot of people, I think, lock down into a belief system, and then it's hard to fight.
So what's really interesting is like we will have patients come in because they do have to like make that first hurdle of like making the appointment.
Yeah.
The second hurdle is actually showing up.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of people will actually weirdly cancel when they're the very first time they're supposed to come in because they're afraid that we're going to take away their food.
Interesting.
It is interesting. And then they come in, they're like, oh, wait, you're not going to take away my food?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, nope, you can eat whatever you want. Let's just put these things together. But a lot of it has to do with building that trust, like listening to them, understanding, and it's called, active listening or motivational interviewing, where you're listening to them. And once they understand that you care about them, then that automatically opens it up. So for instance, I could actually give you a great example. This was like during COVID. So, and actually it was during the riot time. So it was about that time, which was really interesting. But we had this gentleman come in. It was just two women in the office at the time.
Right.
And he's kind of just looking at us like, this is like a danger situation. I'm in an office with two women by myself. And he was just like this really tall, big guy.
Because of COVID, like he was
Yeah, well, it was that. And then with the riots and stuff,
I see.
he just was like extra cautious. And anyway, so he comes in and he's telling me how all these doctors, he probably weighed like 300 pounds, but like all these doctors are like, you need to eat less. You need to eat less. He had this heart problem. And he's going to all these specialists and they're like, you need to eat less, you need to eat less. And literally when he came in, and I don't know if your audience can see, but we're facing each other, he literally was like this while I was talking to him, you know? And he's like, and so I read body language pretty well. And so I was like, oh, this is fascinating that his body language is like completely closed off, right? And so I'm talking to him and I'm taking down information from him and I'm asking him questions. And so he's like, inadvertently, what he had done is like ate less. And when I did his dietary recall, so that's usually what we do is we like, what are you eating during the day?
Right.
He was probably eating 800 calories.
Oh, wow.
Because the doctor, he's like, I can't eat any less.
Right.
So I looked at him and I was like, you're actually under eating. And so he sits up, he turns towards me, and he was like, really? And I was like, you are absolutely under eating. And so over time, we got him eating more, and he dropped the weight like really fast.
Interesting.
So again, body language, right? So it's really interesting. You just have to build that trust. You have to hear what they're saying, but they get told over and over again from the medical community that what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
Why is that? Why, like, is it just, do they not have any formal kind of nutrition-based training? Is that the primary reason they just specialize in one field?
So most of the medical community, they specialize in whatever they specialize. Even like a family medicine, right? Like they're learning what they're learning, but they don't get any nutrition. If we're lucky, they get, 1 semester of nutrition. I know RFK Jr., and there's been some shifts. So they're like, I think Texas is requiring med students to actually take a decent amount of nutrition courses. But often what I get is, especially specialists, what I do find is that they will tell women, you're fat, you need to lose weight. And these women are crying.
Right.
They already know that they're overweight. They already know it's a struggle for them. Don't tell them what they already know and not give them any help.
Right.
Right. And so I get sometimes frustrated with their training, and I have to just go back to, this is what they were trained to do. So that is what they're going to do.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, and I'm an out-of-the-box thinker.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, I'm very inquisitive, right? So when I see a patient on, like, multiple patient after patient after patient on the same medication, I'm like, why is everybody on this medication?
Right.
Right? We're healthcare professionals. That's what they're trained to do. They're trained to treat the symptoms. With us, we're more holistic, right? It's like, what's the root cause of this? Can we fix it? And there's a lot of really easy root cause fixes. Like if somebody isn't sleeping well, we can give them magnesium glycinate. They're going to sleep well. Where a doctor is trained to give them medication.
Right.
You see? So it has to do with their training, and I try not to fault them on that because they're busy. Like doctors are busy. They have to see a lot of patients in a short amount of time, where we get more time with them. So it's like, I just chalk it up to their training. But a lot of our patients are just like, what? Why did my doctor tell me this? I'm like, it's part of the training. They don't know any better. It's fine. They're focused on other things where our focus is different. But when it comes to nutrition, the doctors, they just don't have that training.
Right.
But then they're like, yeah, go lose weight. Okay, well, how do I do that?
Right. Yeah.
So what I try to do is actually like educate healthcare professionals on what we do as dietitians, because I think a lot of times too there's like a misconception of what a dietitian does. A lot of people actually think we just give out meal plans.
Right.
And we don't.
Yeah.
Or that we're going to take away their food, or we're going to be like a macro coach who's super strict and going to yell at them and all these things. And that's really not what we do. So I like to go out and educate healthcare professionals on what we do. And it's like, you didn't get that nutrition training, send them to us.
Right.
Let us do it. We have the time. We make the time for that. Let's let us help them. And, there are plenty of doctors that do refer to us because they've seen over time the labs are better for the patient's losing weight, their health is improving, all these things. And so, it's gaining that trust with the doctors too, that like, hey, I'm not going to just like do something weird, because not all dietitians are created equal. I have heard some, horror stories there too, right?
Yeah,
and it has to
sure.
do with our training. So our training, similar to other healthcare professionals, is actually, in my opinion, antiquated. It's not like up to current research.
Okay,
But
yeah.
I think it takes a long time to change that training. Does that make sense? Within the school structure.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of go outside of that structure to find the actual answers.
How many years behind would you say? Because I think that's pretty common. Like, an education module gets created,
Yep.
the curriculum's designed, and then that's what they teach. And they'll teach that for
Years.
however many years.
Yeah.
And not necessarily getting it updated.
That's a great question. I would have to go look and see maybe when that, education, at least for us, was maybe published in comparison to where we are today.
Right.
Because I remember even like when I was in school, they were still teaching the pyramid.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I was just like,
Didn't that recently get updated or something?
yeah. So it's really interesting. So the pyramid, what I found when I was, because I experiment, right? I'm going to experiment on myself. I'm going to experiment on my friends. I'm going to experiment on my spouse, whatever, right? So everybody just becomes my guinea pig.
Yeah.
But so I tried when I was like just barely in nutrition school, like one of my very first classes, I was like, it seemed weird the way they had it structured. And I was like, this is kind of weird. I'm like, but I'm going to try it out. I'm going to use these recommendations. I'm going to put it on these people. And they all gained weight. And I was all, that's probably not the right thing, right?
Yeah.
So I just started doing my own thing.
Yeah. What tests what were you having them do?
So
when you
literally the
test-
guidelines that were in my textbook,
Okay, yeah.
based on like their height, weight, age, all that stuff, like these were the guidelines. They should be having this many servings of this, so many servings of that.
Interesting.
And what I was like, it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And then when I actually tested it, I was all, fascinating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because food is medicine, but
Yeah.
you still have to like use it in the correct way for it to really maximize its benefits.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
so, so back to the dietary guidelines. So it used to be a pyramid, right? Like when I was a kid, my parents were a kid. So some of that too, generationally, right? We're still using the pyramid. Then it changed to my plate, which a lot of dietitians really liked because of the visual.
Sure.
And I still use it. Like the dietary guidelines just changed, but I love the visual aid for people. They need to see like, what does a plate look like? What do those portions look like?
Right.
So the visual aid is really great. The new dietary guidelines, they changed, right? So instead of low fat, now it's full fat,
Full fat. Right.
right? A higher protein. Just eating less processed foods,
Right.
And so part of the problem with the My Plate that happened is they didn't specify maybe some of those things, where now it's like a big push to like, hey, let's eat less processed stuff. Let's eat more whole foods. But then it has become like this. It was really actually funny when it came out. I'm in all these Facebook groups for dietitians, and everybody's freaking out about the graphics. I was like,
Right.
who cares? Yeah, I get it. Like the plate is a visual aid. They should have probably kept that. Maybe just put the right foods in there. Whatever.
Yeah.
But then we're back to a pyramid, and everybody's like freaking out about that because it's not consumer friendly.
Sure.
Right? It's not friendly for the average person. They look at that and they're like, what am I supposed to do with that?
Right. It doesn't give them an idea of like how much or.
The interesting thing is, and I've had somebody actually ask me this, they're like, how many patients have asked you about the new dietary guidelines? I said, 0. It's not even on their radar. They probably don't even know they changed.
Yeah.
The only people that know it changed were other dietitians.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? So, and probably healthcare too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
Is that just poor publicity, or just hasn't infiltrated the school systems yet, or?
That's going to be a tough one with the school systems because
Yeah.
kids are very selective. It's hard to feed kids.
Yeah.
And do I want them to eat more whole foods? Absolutely. But I'm so glad I'm not the dietitian that has to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder who preps those cafeteria foods, because that's usually quite the effort. I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
it's a lot of work. As part of our training, we do have to do a rotation in food service, especially school nutrition. And actually, one of my dietitians that work with us, she did school nutrition for 1 billion years. That was like her gig. And then I convinced her to come hang out with me instead. So it's more fun.
Yeah.
But it's a lot. It's really a lot to kind of fit in those regulations and have the kids like the food.
Right.
And so with the new changes, I was like, oh, how's that going to go?
Do you think that's just because kids are getting fed like kind of junk food regularly, and so that's what they're used to.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's what they're exposed to.
Right.
Right? Like, what are they being exposed to at home? If they've never seen a fruit or vegetable before at home, now they're going to school.
Right.
What are they going to do with that? Because kids need a minimum of 21 exposures to a food before they'll even eat it.
Right.
So then, now you're thinking, okay, are these schools going to have tons of waste because kids aren't going to eat it?
Yeah.
Is it better for them? Absolutely. But food training belongs in the home. It really does, because that's where it starts. It starts when they're little. When I talk to parents who are like, my kid's not going to eat that, blah, blah, blah. Well, I've worked with people who are vegan, and guess what they're feeding their kids? All vegan food. Guess what they eat? All vegan food. Right? So it's possible. Now, there's going to be the caveats out there, kids with autism and, food aversions and things like that. So there are definitely more complicated things. But on a whole, you have to model as a parent, because if you're like, you eat this vegetable, but I'm going to go eat French fries.
Right.
They're not going to do it.
Yeah.
They're just not.
They're going to throw that out.
And case in point, like, I can give you an example. My oldest daughter versus my youngest daughter. My oldest daughter, I was not healthy. I didn't know how to eat. I didn't whatever. We ate mac and cheese on the regular. We did these things. And guess what she loves? She loves mac and cheese. She loves
Yeah.
because we had these like fun lunches together, but they weren't really healthy, right?
Right.
Then I got healthy and went to school and understood nutrition and all those things. And then my younger one loves fruits and vegetables and like all the things, right? She just loves them. So it really does have to do with what's going on in the home, really what the mom is modeling, because that's who spends typically the most time with them, unless you're in a situation where like the father is staying home.
Right.
Then that would be the interesting research to see is like how many of those homes is it the father that's actually impacting versus the mother.
Yeah. Do you think there's something like more primal there with the fact of it like being the mom and the kids versus like the dad and the kids? Just because like I would assume the only thing I could connect it to is like a kid's getting fed from their mother from like birth.
Well, right, even before then, right? Like,
Right.
what is the mom eating before?
Right. Oh, true.
Right?
Because even in the womb and
Because
everything.
it has to do with like the food that the mom's eating has to do with like gene expression and things like that. They even actually did research on, the effect of the mother's weight. Like, was she considered in the obesity category? And we can talk about the BMI all day because I think it's stupid. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If they're in the obese category, their children are going to be born and become obese, or if they weren't obese when they were pregnant. So it has to do with gene expression, which is really kind of interesting to see those models. But yeah, whatever the mom's eating, but it's really difficult. I work with pregnant women all the time. They're nauseous.
Right.
They don't feel good.
Yeah.
No, go eat fruits and vegetables when that might make you throw up. You know what I'm saying? So so there is some of that, but I think maybe even if, if they were maybe healthier before they started the pregnancy, then that's still kind of
leads into it. Mm-hmm. Do unhealthy foods? I don't know anything about pregnancy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do healthy foods tend to trigger pregnant women, or is it kind of like what they are used to eating triggers it? Because I also know there's a lot of times where those things get turned off too, and it's like random things that.
Yeah, it's very hormonal. So pregnant women typically don't have a lot of control over it.
Okay.
It is really hormonal on what they even crave. Usually the cravings have to do with like, what are you deficient in, kind of a thing. So they don't really have a lot of. They can do the best that they can. Mm-hmm. It just depends on the woman. It depends on the pregnancy.
Right.
Like I'm working with a lady. She's currently pregnant. She came back to me because she's running like half marathons and stuff, and so she just wants.
She's pregnant.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So so she wanted to make sure her nutrition's doing well while she's doing these runs, and she was already doing that stuff before. So typically, if they're already doing that stuff before, it's fine for them to do.
Yeah, it's probably hard to get pregnant then start into that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's actually not recommended.
Yeah. Okay.
Can exercise if you weren't exercising before.
Yeah.
You can do like light stuff, but you don't want to be doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's been really fortunate. She hasn't really been super nauseous, no major food aversions, things like, because they can actually even have like what's called acid reflux, because of hormones. So she's been really fortunate. If she was nauseous and maybe couldn't get quite the nutrition in, then I would be like, no, let's not have you do these runs. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it just depends. They just have no control over what their hormones are going to do. All they can do is do the best that they can do.
Right.
Yeah.
I've heard that being more active though, like physically, and then also eating better during the pregnancy tends to make the actual pregnancy easier.
The pregnancy easier, the birth easier, and the recovery easier.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why is that? It's just kind of like an athlete that's got their body
Your
in a
body's
good
ready
spot.
for it. Yeah, your body's ready for it, right? Versus like, you're sitting all day and you can't really do couch to 5K
Right.
when you're pregnant. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's just not the same. And your body's the same way. I can't just be sitting on the couch all day and then be like, oh, we're going to do all these things because there's so much demand on the body to grow a baby. It's a lot. Like, they're exhausted because you're growing a human.
Right.
So
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I don't think people associate giving birth to being like
an athlete.
athletic
Totally.
sport, but it is quite it's just like any strain on the body.
Yeah, and if you wind up having what they call a cesarean section, right? That's a major surgery.
Yeah.
So think about somebody who's had a major surgery.
Yeah,
Their body needs time to heal and repair.
Yeah, the more healthy than fit they are, the better they'll be.
Right, and that's the case for everything, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're going to have a surgery and you have diabetes, they're going to be like, hey, you have to be under a certain amount
Right.
before we'll even do the surgery because the risk is too high.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I don't think people associate those things together. We very much boxed off like, okay, this is not an athletic feat. This is,
Yeah.
interesting. So that guy you're working with who he was like eating 800 calories. Did he, you're like, I work with a lot of guys. So how did raising his calories and actually, increasing it, how did that help him lose weight? Because I think that confuses a lot of people.
Yeah. So if you Google if you Google how to lose weight, it says eat less, exercise more.
Yeah.
Which it depends on where they're at.
Right.
And I would say for him, and this is actually men typically aren't in that category. Like men, it's pretty cut and dry. Like if you're overeating, I get you under. Like I cut your calories, you're gonna lose weight. If you're under eating, I get you to eat more calories, you're gonna drop weight. Right. So women, it's a lot trickier, right? Because they historically undereat.
Right.
Which is really interesting. But the process is when you eat 800 calories, let's say hypothetically he was supposed to get like 3,000 calories,
Sure.
right? Your body now has to operate off 800, but as we've talked about, your resting metabolic rate is the basic amount of calories that your body needs for it to lay around all day.
Right.
So maybe his resting metabolic rate was 1,800. He's eating 800. He's well below that threshold.
Yeah.
So what happens is your metabolism will slow down to match that because your body needs to conserve energy. So you don't blink as much, your digestion slows. Like it's conserving energy. But if you do that long term, because think about starvation, right? Like if you were, back in the day hunting your own food and doing those things, you would have famines and things like that. So your body it's going to do what it needs to survive.
Right.
So it'll operate less. And what we'll see is when you're operating on those lower calories, we start storing fat.
Oh.
Because our body is going to use that as a stored energy source if a bear starts to chase you.
Okay.
It needs to have energy available, and if you're not giving it to it, it's going to start storing fat. So we tend to see it more in women because they've been on some diet, 3 diets, 10 diets. Most actually women start dieting at age 10.
Interesting.
Because their mom or their grandma or someone was like, we should probably put you on a diet.
Yeah.
And which is interesting. I'm going to segue into that real quick. But so I work with a lot of moms who are worried about their child being overweight.
Yeah.
But what people forget is when your child, especially a girl, is in that pre-puberty age, and boys will do it too. I call it baby weight.
Oh, yeah.
They put on weight, right? So their body can get ready to grow. And for women, it has to do with like the hormonal structure of puberty and things like that as well. So it's more prominent in women. But what you get is moms who are freaked out that their child's going to be obese when really they just need to wait until they're about 16.
Yeah.
And let them grow into it.
Right.
Does that make sense? And so that's where the eating disorders will start too at a really young age because they start dieting at 10.
Interesting.
And every time you diet, your body gets smarter and smarter and smarter because it sees it as danger.
Sure.
And so the second so a lot of women too, like, oh yeah, when I was 16, I just stopped drinking soda and I dropped weight really quick. And then they get into their 30s, 40s and they're like, it's not working. And that's usually why they come see us. Because what I've been doing isn't working. It's because your body already knows.
Right.
It's like, oh, you're doing that again? Okay.
Right.
I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to start storing fat.
Yeah.
Because you're going to starve me.
Interesting.
So that's typically what happens is you'll start to store fat. So as we raise calories, as we give them more calories, their body starts to feel what I call safe. And that's the easiest way to explain it is like your body doesn't trust you. It doesn't feel safe. So it's going to kick in all these mechanisms to preserve and protect you from you.
Interesting.
So once you get it to where it can feel safe, and that's different for everyone. Would I have to get that guy to 3,000 calories if that's what his total daily energy expenditure is? The answer is probably not. It's just we don't know where his body's going to feel safe. So we just slowly raise calories until the body feels safe, and they start dropping just dropping weight.
Yeah.
And dropping inches, right? Because sometimes it's not always about the scale, and we're so scale focused that teaching people too, it's not just about the scale. Are you sleeping better? Do you have better energy? Are your clothes fitting better? Because really, people care about what they look like in their clothes, not necessarily what the scale says.
Yeah, it's more of a visual thing. We just equate it to
a number on the scale.
Yeah, because that's how we track it.
Yep.
Interesting. Do they find that so these girls that start dieting at 10 or whatever, right? When it's probably just kind of prepubescent, baby weight or whatever, the term you're using. Is it when they start trying to get into this diet or whatever because their parents are like, oh no, my child's getting overweight, does that actually tend to lead to them getting more overweight then?
It can.
It can, yeah.
Yeah, because it starts this cycle of foods being good or bad.
Right.
A negative self-image on what they look like. That's kind of when they become aware. And if you think about junior high, everybody hits puberty at different times. Yeah. And so a lot of girls are starting to see that, like, this person started a little bit sooner, so they have things that I don't have, or I'm heavier than that person, or whatever. And so that's when they start to compare themselves, but it doesn't help when the parents like, yeah, you need to lose weight.
Yeah, they're like, yes, you are.
Yeah. I mean, it's setting them up for failure just because then they're like, they likely do some kind of calorie cut.
Right.
So this is the first time their body's experiencing this, and it works out great. And then they do it again, and their body's all, that's weird. Yeah. So maybe like the first time it takes 6 months for their body to figure it out. And then the next time maybe it's 4 months. And then the next time it's 3. And you know what I'm saying? So over time, it just depends on how many times they do it.
Can this affect their growth process too?
It can.
Because I would assume if you're underfeeding your body when it's like, no, I need the nutrition to grow.
It's not going to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting when I'm dealing with kids, youth in general, when they're athletes too. The kids that do football and then they have to put on weight for football, or lose weight for, usually they'll do wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a vast, we're talking 20, 30 pound difference in a young person, right? And what I do is I see them when they're in their 60s and their body's all jacked up. But yeah, especially a sport like wrestling or a sport, where you need to drop that kind of weight at that age, it's going to stunt your growth.
Okay.
Will it catch up? Possibly. But possibly not.
So what's the best method? Just to try and keep it pretty consistent in general?
Yeah, especially at that age.
Is that why wrestlers are all small and short? Is that the...
Probably.
Interesting.
I'd have to look at the research, but I mean, that's what I would assume, right? Because they're stunting their growth. They have to cut weight, you know what I'm saying? And that's just long-term, not necessarily good metabolically for them as well.
Right. Because how long will they be in that deficit? Probably a few months?
However long the season is, but with most sports now for kids, it's year-round.
Right, because they're trained to be whatever. Yeah. Interesting.
So it is really interesting. Plus, if you kind of think about it, it's, in my opinion, I'm kind of it's kind of like a eating disorder behavior.
Right.
Because they have to be so strict in what they're eating, So it is really interesting.
Yeah. How does that play a factor? Because I know one of the things you mentioned is you're not going to take people's food away. And I think people freak out about that.
They do. Yeah.
Is it more about how much you're eating, or is it more about what you're eating?
Both.
Okay. Right?
So everybody, calorically speaking, and that's what people are familiar with, is calories, right? How many calories does your body really need?
Right.
The really interesting thing is, even though the predicted equation says you need 2,000 calories, I sometimes can get people to 22, 24 if you do it the right way, right? But most of the time, most people equate it to calories, but what you're eating does matter.
Right.
Right. So there can be arguments made. There was a doctor, a professor years ago. I think it was called the Twinkie study, and he was trying to prove to his class that hey, I can eat only Twinkies for, I don't know, it was 2 weeks or something. I have to go back and look at the study, but anyway, and lose weight.
Right.
And he did. Yeah. So then that furthers the calories in, calories out thought process. What we don't think about is hormones.
Yeah.
Right. So when we're in a deficit for a man, or a woman, we're going to raise cortisol levels. When we raise cortisol levels, our body is not going to make hormones, testosterone. So we'll see low testosterone, we'll see low estrogen, and we'll see all these things, right? So it's because your body is in fight or flight.
Right.
And so it's like it perceives it as danger, so it's going to do what it needs. It's going to, slow down your metabolism, all those things that we were talking about before. So, so calories, you have to be really careful. And I like to give people as many calories as we can and still see them lose weight. But sometimes that has to do with the food that we're eating, because really a lot of the population is what we call insulin resistant.
Okay, yeah.
So with insulin resistance, basically what it means is that, our cells have this keyhole, if you will, and the key insulin will open the door and let the glucose in, and we'll utilize glucose to make energy, right? So with insulin resistance, I equate it to the tooth is broken off and we can't open the door. So when that happens, when we have too much glucose in the bloodstream, we also have too much insulin in the bloodstream, or keys in the bloodstream. And when we have too many keys or insulin in the bloodstream, our body won't burn fat. It's a safety mechanism, right? Because it wants to make sure glucose is available for if a bear is going to chase us, or
Right.
it's ready for like a moment's notice of like, hey, we got to act fast.
Yeah.
So what we'll see is like when we have insulin resistance, they can cut calories all they want, but if they're not managing that insulin resistance, they're still not losing weight. So what you eat does matter.
Yeah.
Obviously, too, the nutrients that we get in different foods.
Right.
Right? There's a reason why they say eat the rainbow. There's a reason why most dietitians like the plate, because you can see different colors. You need the different nutrients. You need to diversify your food so you're getting different nutrients.
So how does with insulin resistance, because I've heard that term before, and your analogy makes sense with the keys. So how do you turn that off, I guess? Because and I guess what actually leads to having too much insulin in the bloodstream?
So, there's myriad of things. It's chronic inflammation in general. What's causing that inflammation? It literally could be I didn't sleep well, high stress, environmental toxins, things like that. But typically it has to do with our food,
Yeah.
right? We're over consuming in processed and carbohydrate foods, right? Because they're easy,
Right.
right? And so when we have too much of that, where it's almost like a kid that's like poking you.
Yeah.
I always think about Bart Simpson when I think Lisa has a tattoo and he keeps touching. He's like, I'll quit it. So we're over taxing our system with too much glucose. So then it's putting in too much insulin. And so insulin's like knocking at the door, but the cell's like, I'm tired of listening to you. You're bugging me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it just doesn't respond. Right. And so over time, it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So our method is we manage the glucose spike through food, and exercise, sleep, managing our stress, those kind of things, in order to bring that glucose down and not overtax the system with too much insulin.
Yeah.
And then the body is amazing. It will correct itself if you do things the right way, right? There are going to be like, spin-offs of people having other diseases or things like that complicate it. But for the most part, you can control it through diet and exercise.
Is that why people see results with like keto, for example? Is that the primary reason?
So a couple different reasons. People see results from keto because they're depleting their carbohydrate storage, basically, essentially, which is forcing their body to utilize fats. But then they aren't overtaxing their system with too many carbohydrates. And then the other thing, which is really interesting, is the gut microbiome. So a lot of people, what they say is they feel better on keto. Now there's keto flu, right? I don't know if you've heard of that.
Sounds like the depletion of the carbohydrates or whatever.
I think it's twofold. I think it's the depletion of the carbohydrates and then our gut bacteria.
Yeah.
If we have those kind of bad guys in there, they're going to feed off the crappy food.
Right.
Right? And they're going to crave more crappy food. So it's this like vicious cycle. When you go on keto, you're killing off those bugs, actually. And then keto flu is both the transition to utilizing those fatty acids, but also when we're killing off those, what I call pathogenic bacteria, they actually put off what are called endotoxins or toxins in general, and you have flu-like symptoms.
Oh, interesting.
So when I'm doing somebody with gut health and when we're trying to kill off bugs, we're doing it dietarily and then we're doing it with supplements. But I actually have them titrate the supplements very slowly because if we do it too fast, they're going to feel like they have the flu.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of interesting. And like once I was doing some gut health research and I was like, I think that's actually why they have the keto flu.
Right.
There's a name for it, and I can't even like pronounce it, but it's basically die-off. But you do have flu-like symptoms.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. And the die-off can last, 2 weeks.
Right.
So think about keto, right?
Yeah.
So speaking of that, people always ask me, like, what do I think of keto?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I'm not opposed to keto, paleo, all these other things, right? We use them sometimes therapeutically. Even carnivore will sometimes use therapeutically because it's very similar to keto, where it's it's killing off those bacteria.
Right.
Right. But it therapeutically means short term. Right. And so the thing is for us is we want something that's sustainable. Keto is tricky. You have to be very strict, and it's good for people that are very number, logic, all those things.
Sure.
Right. But that's not the majority of the population. Majority of the population is actually very emotional, especially when it comes to food.
Right.
And so the problem with like keto or even intermittent fasting, it's like, okay, I can't be perfect all the time. I have to go to my kid's birthday party. I have to have this piece of cake.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's just not sustainable. And then again, it puts them back in that cycle of feeling bad about themselves because I didn't do it perfectly.
Right.
Right? Because those diets, you do have to do them perfectly in order for them to be effective.
Yeah.
And that just furthers the conversation in someone's head that, like, I'm a bad person. I didn't do this right. Why can't I do this? This person did it. I suck as a person, right?
Yeah.
And so that's not what we want. We want people to feel good about themselves and to be able to eat, and no matter what situation they're in, and not gain 20 pounds on a cruise.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. 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 And then the stress kicks in, and then they're gaining more weight, and they're emotionally,
Yeah.
With keto, so how does that actually work? Because me and my brother got in a huge argument like a month ago about keto.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the specifics, but I just know we were going at it for like an hour, and he was like, "You're wrong, Matt." I don't know, and I don't even remember what my stance was on it, so it clearly wasn't that big of an argument or important. But how scientifically does it actually work? Like, what's kind of the thought process behind it? Is it just decreasing kind of the I don't like how is it actually tapping into burning your fat stores? Is that the idea?
But you have to be perfect at it.
Okay.
Right? Because that conversion, there's a point where it converts.
Yeah.
You eat a carbohydrate, well, now it's converted back because your body's always going to favor carbohydrates. And ketogenic diet actually came about originally as an experiment with children with epilepsy.
Oh, wow.
So they were doing the experiment, and they found that if they put the children on a ketogenic diet, but they were in a hospital being supervised, that they had less seizures. But then they've done that same experiment on adults, and it's not effective. It's really interesting.
Why is that, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know what it has to do with just like you're older, and I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know that they know. I'd have to go back and see if there was some research on it. But yeah, when keto first came out, all of us dietitians were looking at each other going, that's for kids with epilepsy.
Yeah, yeah.
Or with just seizures in general, right? So, but it is very effective, right? But the problem is sustainability, right? But the process is basically you're starving yourself of carbohydrates, so your body will convert and start using those fatty acids.
Interesting. Okay.
Which happens in starvation mode, right?
Yeah.
Like think about a famine. You don't have any wheat or whatever, or there was like pests that come along and eat your field, and all you have to do is eat meat.
Right.
Your body can convert fats and proteins into energy.
Interesting. Okay, so kind of like the bear in hibernation, it's just tapping into the fat stores rather than.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that proves that my point was right. So I'm going to send this to my brother so that he knows that I was.
You were right. What was his argument?
He was just. I think he was trying to say that it doesn't actually tap into the fat stores, and that it like. And I was like, well, then what's the point of keto then if it's not doing that? Then that's the whole purpose. I'm sure if I send him this, he'll be like, that's not what I was saying.
Literally, he could just Google it, but
yeah. So, on the emotional side of things, why is there such a connection between emotions and food? Because it seems to be the case in
Yeah.
And maybe for some people, and everybody has kind of their. I would say everybody has their addictions, right? Things that they're more drawn to than others. Right. And you mentioned like the logical person where it's like food is just an input, right? Maybe it's not an issue for them.
Yeah.
But for most people, it can be a very emotional thing. So why is that?
So twofold. Usually it's a memory. So I'll give you a case in point. When I was growing up, my grandma every Christmas would just make batches and batches and batches of chocolate chip cookies. So that's a good memory for me, right? Like when I see chocolate chip cookies, it reminds me of my grandma. When I smell chocolate chip cookies, it reminds me of that time I spent with her. Right. So that's where the emotional tie comes in. Usually it's a good memory, or we use it as a coping mechanism. Right. So case in point, I mean, I'm totally at fault of this. I'm potty training my kids and I'm like, oh my gosh, she went potty in the potty. Here's a sucker. Do you know what I'm saying? We reward our children with food. I'm not saying that's bad. That's just what we do as a culture. We're a culture of food, right? And it's easy. It's like, oh, I give this kid a piece of candy. They're like, yeah. So then they're like, okay, I do something good. I get candy. Oh, your boyfriend broke up with you. Let's take you to ice cream.
Right.
You see, so we're starting these habits, and we associate food with comfort.
Yeah.
Especially if it's comfort foods. And comfort foods to somebody is usually something that their mom or their grandma made when they were sick, or it was cold out, or whatever, right? And so we start to comfort ourselves with food. So it's very psychological.
Yeah.
And that's why the GLP-1s are really working well for people, is because it's taking that emotion out of the food.
Interesting.
So it's like, and they're...
How does it do that?
So it has to do with your brain, and they've actually looked at GLP-1s for helping people with addictions. Right?
Wow.
And so it's the chemical in your brain, and so it just stops that process. So now people on GLP-1s are more logical when it comes to food. They're less emotional.
Interesting.
Right? And the other thing probably too is like it changes their food. Like the way food tastes their, their desire to eat certain foods.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah, they can have food aversions too.
Wow.
In the beginning, we saw a lot of people. So when you're on a GLP-1, you really need to be eating a lot of protein. And I was having patients who were having food aversions to protein.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
I need you to eat this. But they're like, I can't. It just makes me want to gag
Yeah.
to even think about eating protein.
Put them on tofu.
Yeah, I know, right? So then you just have to get creative. Like, okay, what can we use instead? Do you like dairy? And then trying to figure out, because it does change their taste buds too.
Interesting.
It is really interesting.
I always thought it was just like curbing hunger, which I guess
it does too as well. But it takes the emotion away. And I think that's what a lot of people are calling food noise. I'm still not having put my finger on what they're calling food noise. Part of it,
I've never heard that. What is that?
Yeah, food noise. So it's usually the constant thinking about food.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I see.
What's my next meal? What's blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So, and it can be too, maybe a scarcity. Maybe they were worried about when the next meal was coming, those kind of things. And so, I don't know. I'm always worried about the next meal because I know I'm going to be hungry. So
Right.
I'm like,
it's like that Great Depression stuff. Like you have, like my grandparents,
scarcity
everything
mentality.
off your plate.
Yep.
Don't ever throw anything away. And you're going, we've had 3 plates now. I don't think I need. Yeah.
I think you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, when you go back to that too, is where do people get in trouble it's called the Clean Your Plate Club, literally. That's what we call it. But, if you grew up and you had to eat everything off your plate, but who put the food on your plate?
Right.
And that was the problem. Usually the parents were putting the food on the plate, which was maybe a bigger portion size than it was for their child. Because if you think about your fist, that's about as big as your stomach is. Think about a little person, and you just gave them this plate full of food.
Yeah.
Right? So then they have guilt associated if they don't eat it.
Yeah.
So that, makes it worse. And that's the GLP-1s again. We're seeing people who were maybe part of that don't have that emotion anymore.
Interesting.
So it is really interesting. I don't know that people are really looking at the psychological piece of it. They're only looking at they're losing weight. And now we're worried about micronutrient deficiencies and muscle loss and all the other crazy stuff. But
right, because when they go on that GLP, is that causing them to... Is the reason they need more protein because it's going to try and tap into their muscle stores? Is that what's...
Yeah, so typically they're eating less. I would say on average I'm seeing patients that are on a GLP-1 are eating 800 to 1,000 calories.
Oh, wow.
And so they're under eating.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole thing, is everybody's their muscles, because that's where your body's going to tap into, right? It's going to start tapping into your muscles, breaking down the protein in your muscles to use that for energy.
Is that the easiest source?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Usually, yeah. Usually when anybody's in a deficit, whether they're on a GLP-1 or not, if you aren't getting enough A, calories, and B, protein, your body will start breaking down your muscle.
Interesting.
So that's why you can't lose weight and build muscle at the same time.
Right.
Two opposing. A lot of people are like, oh, I want to lose weight, but I want to build muscle. I'm like, oh, you can't do both. We can lean somebody out while we're building muscle, because then we're just, utilizing the fat storage essentially, because the more we build muscle, the more our body's going to utilize fat for energy. But when we're in a deficit, especially a severe deficit, your body's going to start breaking down your muscle.
Right. Yeah. So actually that leads me to a question, because so you've been having me actually increase my calories. I think I'm on like 2,500 this week. But I noticed I am starting to lean out a little bit more. And I was actually telling Kel just the other day, I'm like, this is so weird, because I'm like eating more, but I feel like I'm looking more lean. And I'm just like, it seems so like
counterintuitive.
Yes, because you're like, I'm eating more, but I'm looking better. But so, because I mean, I didn't really know where my metabolism was at necessarily. I think when I came to you, I was eating like 18, 19, right under 2,000 calories, because I wasn't really sure.
Yeah.
But now I'm sitting here going, I'm like, was I just underfeeding myself for a really long time?
Probably.
So how does that work exactly? So how does, like, I guess I don't know if it's the science of it, but how can you eat more, but then lean out? That I'm still trying to mentally understand how that works.
It's because when we're in a surplus, then our body feels safe to put on muscle. Right? And when we put on muscle, speeds up our metabolism.
Right.
When we put on muscle, we're burning all day long, versus like if you just go do cardio for 30 minutes, you're only burning during that 30 minutes.
Right. Oh,
Where the muscle's burning all day long, and so your body's like, oh, well, there's not going to be enough glucose or whatever, I'm going to start burning the fat. So I usually like to say, muscle loves fat because it loves to eat it.
Right.
Right? It's going to use that stored fat in order to feed itself, because your metabolism is sped up.
Right.
Right? So as you're putting on more lean muscle, the fat goes down, which means you lean out. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
But if you're in a deficit, you can't put on that muscle.
Right.
Because your body's like, no, I got to use this energy for other stuff. I'm not going to go build more muscle.
Right. So it just kind of gets stuck.
So that's why they call it a bulking phase, right? But as you've seen, I don't like to bulk. Some people will bulk like drastically, where you're putting on like 20 pounds. But when you have to lean out, that's 20 more pounds you got to take off.
Yeah.
And so I don't love that, because I don't like those huge shifts in weight, because your body's going to perceive it as danger, and it's going to remember the next time you do it. So I kind of take the sneaky approach. I want your body to do what I want it to do, but not have it pay attention that I'm doing it.
Right.
And if you do anything extreme, it's going to be like, bells and whistles, oh my
Right.
gosh, we're in danger, right? Or if we do it kind of slowly and sneakily, it doesn't really pay attention.
Yeah.
And you get the results that you want. We achieve what you want. But that's an art, right? Like, I don't get taught that in school.
Yeah.
Like
Okay. That's what
I had to figure that out on my own. Lots of research, really. Yeah.
So why? Okay, because that's interesting. I was going to ask you that. So that's not common practice. Interesting.
No, it took me a long time to find it. It's just not, because we're taught for people to be healthy, not for performance necessarily. Like, there's a whole nother like niche of sports nutrition.
Yeah.
Right. But the interesting thing is when I was looking at all these women that are under eating, and I was like, how do I get them to eat more but not gain weight?
Right.
Because the second, if a woman comes to me and she's tried everything and she wants to lose weight, but she's severely under eating, and I give her too many calories, she's going to gain weight. She's going to be upset.
Yeah. 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 It's like, what the heck?
Yeah. So I had to actually go to the bodybuilding world and do some research there, and that's where I found this technique. It's actually called reverse dieting. I didn't come up with that name. BioLane and his wife did. But anyway, and I was like, oh, okay. So in the bodybuilding world, basically that's what they do. They bulk to put on muscle, and then they cut to lean out, and then they'll reverse that process.
Interesting.
So it's called reverse dieting, I'm assuming, because you're reversing the dieting process, right? And that's where diets fail everyone, as they lose the weight, and then they're like, now what?
Right.
They go back to doing what they were doing before because they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Right? And so it took me a long time. I probably 3 years of research trying to how does this work? And then trying it out on people and all the things. And I'm like, oh, okay. And really what happened was we kind of sped up the process for me, as I actually had a person that came to me. She wanted to do this trail walk. It was like 7 days or something crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She was already under eating severely, and now she wanted to go backpacking for 7 days. And it was like Northern California area or whatever.
Was she overweight as well?
She was not.
Oh, so she was okay.
She had in her mind Women are very critical of their bodies. Some fat stores in some weird places,
Okay.
right? And she's like, why is this here? And I'm like, oh, you're under eating.
Yeah.
So anyway, because we had such a short amount of time between the time I first met her to when this this backpacking trip was.
Yeah.
I was like, you're going to have such a demand on your body to be walking 20, 30 miles a day.
Right.
You're already under eating. I'm like, this is a mess. So I actually reversed her like really fast. And that's where I learned that technique of doing it. So I'll do it with patients who are holidays, vacations. I can reverse them really fast and then drop them back down and have them not gain any weight on vacation.
Interesting.
But I did that through experimentation.
Right, right. Yeah, that probably takes quite a little bit of, because you can hear a theory, right, or like know it in theory, but every person's a little different, and then it works on.
And they're resistant because they're like, "What do you
Right.
mean you're going to give me more calories and I'm not going to lose weight?"
Right.
Right? Because that's not what Google says.
Yeah. How do you deal with that? Because kind of going back to the emotional and the stigma of it, like I'm sure. I'm not necessarily overweight, so that wasn't necessarily my biggest issue. But I'm sure if you're overweight and you've heard it your entire life, like, don't eat more, cut. Hearing that, you're like, what are you? I don't
Right.
want to do that.
Right. So it takes time.
Yeah.
You have to build that trust. They have to trust that what you are saying is actually going to be true. But the really interesting thing is I won't even, and I'm very upfront with the people I work with. If you can't be consistent in tracking your food, we can't really. Reversing someone is very scientific. It's very precise. So if you're all over the place, 1,200 calories a day, 1,800 tomorrow,
Right.
your body is not going to respond well. And so I can't even move forward to the next phase until we can regulate your calories, right? So let's say I'm eating 1,600 or whatever. So it's like you have to be doing that consistently because the body loves predictability.
Right.
It wants to predict what you're going to do, right? If you're all over the place, it's just going to hold on to your fat.
Right.
It's like, I don't know what you're going to do next, right? So if I can get them eating regularly, those kind of things. So it takes time. And they have to trust me, right? And it does take time. And so sometimes I'm just like, especially if they're doing everything they're supposed to, they're getting ready to go on vacation or it's the holidays or whatever. And they just look at me like, are you sure? And I'm like, what, let's try it.
Yeah.
What did you do last year? Oh, you gained 10 pounds on that cruise? Look, let's see what happens this time.
Yeah, it's either that or we'll see, right?
Right. So usually they'll be like, okay, yeah, you're right. Like me doing it the way I did it last year, I gained 10 pounds. Let's see how your method works. And then we do it one time and they're like, oh, can we do that again for the next next trip or next holiday or whatever? So it's fascinating. And that's probably one of my favorite things about this job is the human body is so interesting.
Right.
And it's so interesting what it can do that it's like, oh, that's really cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, look at these things that we can do with our body. We can do some really extreme things with our body and it'll recover.
Right.
Or you give it the right food or you give it the right order of food and it'll fix itself.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, it's very adaptable. It seems like it's interesting the survival side of it.
Yeah.
Because it seems like a lot of people are living, they don't know it, but they're living in survival mode, it would appear.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Yep.
Interesting.
And that's contributing too, right?
Yeah.
To not being able to lose weight and insulin resistance and things like that because your body's trying to, it's in fight or flight all the time.
Right.
And we don't do a great job as a society to help people bring that parasympathetic nervous system down and kind of just chill out.
Right.
Right? Like we could use more focus on meditation or breathing and things like that. So, yeah.
And then we stick phones in everybody's hands and we wire them up, and then everyone's locked into the system. So, what do you mentioned GLP-1s? Is that a form of a peptide? Because I think peptides they're very popular. People bring them up all the time now, and they're kind of regulated, but not really. And then you've got they're not really approved medication, so then they're like scientific, test trial type stuff. So what role do peptides play? Because I know that's a very popular thing now that people wonder about.
I would say about 2 months ago, all of a sudden people are like, what do you think about peptides? I was like, what? Why is this a thing? Like, I don't understand, right? So that's usually what happens is someone's like, what do you think about this? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Let me do some research, right? So now I've been doing a lot of research. I actually work with City of Mesa Fire Department.
Okay, yes.
They've been asking me, and I was like, oh, okay, this is something, right? So I
Yeah.
looked at it, and GLP-1 is obviously a peptide, and I think that's going to open the doorway to things. What I've seen, the peptides are really expensive, but they just got technically unbanned. I think it was Monday or Tuesday.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because I guess we were getting them from China.
Yes.
And so, RFK Jr. actually, it was funny because I was like, it like popped up on my feed on Instagram, and I was like, wait, what? So then I'm like looking at it, and then I like click on the link to look at the legislature. And so a lot of the peptides that maybe the firefighters or other people have been asking me that I was already researching were on that list
Yeah.
of ones that are being unbanned.
Oh, very cool.
So I'm not quite 100% sure, but it looks like maybe the FDA was like, we can't make these in the United States, so people are getting them from China.
Right.
And now they're making it so compound pharmacies can make them. And I
Okay.
think what we'll see is actually a rise in peptide use.
Yeah.
Because they'll be more readily available and less expensive. They're
Right.
really expensive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if you've looked at them, but I'm like, oh,
Yeah, you get on some of these sites and it's,
$300-$500 a month,
yeah.
or I mean, it's crazy.
and it's kind of like the when the people ban anything, right? When it's not like a legal
Yeah, everybody
substance.
wants it.
Yeah, there's always somebody who comes up with it, right?
Yeah,
And so then you're having to go, okay, can I trust this source I'm getting it from? And I'm sure there was all sorts of impurity type stuff that they were dealing
And
with.
I'm sure that's probably why they're looking to unban them, so we can maybe have a tighter control on the quality,
Yeah,
so we're
yeah.
not like, shooting up, because most of them are injectable,
Yeah.
right? And so that can be problematic.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm hoping that, I'm assuming that's why they've unbanned them, because they are become popular and people are just getting them from China. Who knows what's in them?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so
Yeah.
so it is interesting. I know athletes are using specific ones and things like that. It'll be interesting too to see if when they do testing for events, if they're
Right.
gonna be like, if you're on this, you're out. I don't
Right.
know, right? Because I know like the Wolverine stack is kind of the popular
Yeah, like
one
the
right now.
BPC.
BBC 157 is another one that's really up and coming. So
Yeah. Yeah, that will. Yeah, for like any sports or events, if that's going to be some sort of banned substance.
yeah, because I mean, if you can recover faster, why would you not do it?
Right.
But the research I looked at, most of it, like you said, were like animal tested, not really on people tested. So they're
Yeah.
gonna have to do some, more experiment. The other thing too is like, how long are you on it? Do you have to cycle off? Which I think it was like a 6-week on, 8-week cycle off, well, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, and when I looked at it, a lot of the research was for acute care. So like wounds, things like that. So like,
Right.
you split your Achilles tendon, or you know what I mean, to help it heal faster.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's like, if you're on it for a long time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's too early to tell. So
Well, it'd be interesting too, because I know a lot of the peptides, it seems like, come from, they're like things that are naturally producing in your body,
Yes.
right? That's kind of
Yes.
the thought process behind them. So I wonder if when they test for it, if they can tell, like,
right.
is
But
this-
maybe your level's higher than normal.
Right,
It's probably
yeah.
what I would assume.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Because you're just making those from protein or amino acids, right?
Right, right. So why, if our body naturally produces those peptides, why is it just because you're giving yourself more of it? Is that kind of the
Probably.
thought process, or is it that people are deficient and
That's a good question. I don't know that we have an answer to that.
yeah?
I would imagine because athletes are using it, it just speeds up the healing process, the
Right.
recovery process, which your body's probably doing it, just maybe not as fast as we'd like.
Right,
Right? So it'll happen. I mean, you're sore, and you probably know too, like if you work out all the time, if something makes you sore, you're usually fine in a couple days. Someone who hasn't worked out in forever, they're sore for 2 weeks.
yeah,
So it probably has to do with that too, but we just want it faster.
yeah.
So
Interesting. Yeah, peptides they seem very cool. So I know a lot of people are getting interested in them.
yeah.
What inspired you to get into this field? Because I know just from reading the forum and getting to know you a little bit, I know that you kind of got into this career after having kids and I think for a lot of people that's uncommon. I think a lot of people after they have kids that like they get into that next chapter of life, they're not necessarily starting a new career
Or a business.
or a business or anything, right? So
Yeah. All my
yeah,
friends thought I was crazy.
yeah, yeah. So what inspired that journey for you?
So in the forum, so those of you that obviously didn't read the forum, restaurant management actually was my first career. I loved it because it was fast paced. I could change jobs. I could always constantly be challenging myself. I did actually retail before that, and they wouldn't let me promote because I was too young. And so I was like, I'm out of here. So I actually lucked into restaurants. I was looking for a second job. And so I just moved my way up and got to learn different things. And so I have to keep learning stuff. Like I love learning, and so it allowed me to do that. I think if it had just been kind of like a boring job, because I did switch restaurants when we moved to Arizona, because we're originally from California, and I definitely worked in a restaurant that was slower paced and it was very painful for me.
Yeah.
But it was income for my family, right? So, so it was fine, and made some great friends there and things like that. But yeah, so when my oldest went into junior high, I was like, I gotta stay home. Like this is like really important for me to be home for him and to be home for, because then the next kids are going to be coming through. So,
Right.
so I stayed home. I never really wanted a family or kids. And then I met my husband, and that changed everything. So, so anyways, we have 4 kids now. And I loved being a mother. I loved being with my kids. I loved learning with them and watching them grow and do these things. But there's always a part of me that was like, I need to do something. I need to do something. I need to do something, right? And so a lot of people are like, I love staying home. And I was like, I hate staying home. I'd rather be working, So I just like work because it challenges me kind of a thing. And so honestly, what had kind of happened is, I don't know how many of your listeners are spiritual, but like I kept praying, like when my youngest was younger, like past age 1, I was like, can I go back to school? Can I go to work? Whatever. And Heavenly Father was like, be still. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? Be still. I don't want to be still. I want to like do stuff,
Yeah.
And I got that answer for about 3 years. In the meantime, I had gone back to work after I had my youngest because they had other people on maternity leave and needed some help. So I would work for a few months while they were on maternity leave. And so anyway, after I had my youngest, I couldn't lose weight. I was a runner. I'd been a runner since 7th grade, and that was I had a horrible diet. And I just outran my diet, basically. But anyway, I couldn't lose the weight. And I was like, that's so weird. And I worked with this guy, and he was like super jacked, super ripped. And I was like, hey, what are you eating? Because I saw him eating like kind of healthy stuff.
Yeah.
And so he was like, I don't know, I just eat food. And I was like, well, that's a lame answer.
Yeah.
So he actually brought me a book, and I read it like cover to cover, devoured it, and I followed it, and actually had like a workout plan and a food plan or whatever. And I kid you not, within 2 weeks, I was like, I feel amazing. You know what I mean? I was just like, before I was like sluggish, normal mom stuff, whatever. And I just thought it was like being a mom and whatever. And so that was the first time that I was like, wait, food is medicine? This is amazing. So and then I became super passionate about it. And when I'm passionate about something, I just researched it to death.
Yeah.
So I basically researched it for like the next 5 years. Again, asking Heavenly Father, can I go back to school? Can I whatever? And he's like, no. So I was like, okay, be still. I don't even know what that means, but sure, I'll be still.
Yeah.
Hindsight, I know what he means now. But anyway, so for about 5 years, I was just researching everything. And I got really frustrated that you Google something and you get conflicting things.
Right.
It's like, this is ridiculous. How is anybody supposed to like decide what's right and what's wrong, And I was literally reading research. I'm a big fat nerd. So I was literally like...
You're like on PubMed.
Yeah, like I literally would get like back then it was the magazines, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, get the magazines, and it was nutrition magazines, really. And I'm like reading the research and like interpreting it and blah, blah, blah. And so didn't have ChatGPT back then to tell me what it said, but I figured it out.
Yeah.
So anyway.
What year was this? Because
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to do the math. I think I graduated in 2016. Well, so let's see, my daughter's 20. And I went back, was she 5? So 15 years ago.
Okay.
So 2011.
Okay, so really before, because there was kind of when social media and YouTube, those things started coming out, then there was a boost of people starting to get a little more aware of that stuff. But before then, nothing.
No, you had to go to the library to still research stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Let me date myself, but so anyway, I at that point, as I was researching, I actually read an article, again, a nutrition article, and I was like, what gives this person the authority to say this, blah, blah, blah. And so she actually had registered dietitian after her name, and I was like, what the heck is that? So I look it up, and I was like, oh, evidence-based, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, that's it. That's what I want to do, right? And so I did some research on that. What do you have to do to be a dietitian? There was like a step down, which is called a DTR, so it's a diet tech. So I was like, it was a 2-year program, and I was like, I could probably talk my husband into that, versus a 4-year program plus an internship. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway, I did a little bit of research, and then I told my husband I met with the counselor at Chandler Gilbert, and he's like, what? why are you meeting with I'm like, I'm just doing some research. And she actually signed me up for classes. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be signed up for classes. She's like, oh, you can just cancel later. Anyway, so
Like, okay.
yeah, so hook, line, and sinker. So she got me signed up for classes, and that's kind of where, you know, I was still kind of researching it, and I actually prayed about it again. And my Heavenly Father was like, I was asking him about the 2 different paths, and he was like, no. I said, go be a registered dietitian. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. It's running good though. Okay, good. Okay. Took a quick break for the cameras, but we're back, and we were talking about your journey from kind of getting really passionate about registered dietitian, and then feeling like also God was like, yes, go down that path.
Yeah. So he was like, be a dietitian. And so I went back to school. My husband freaked out when I told him that I had enrolled in these classes. I was like, it'll be fine. Because they literally were while my kids were at school, which was like super awesome. I'd literally like drop them off, go to school, come back, pick them up. Like it was a little crazy.
Yeah.
And honestly, going back to school when you have little people is really hard.
For sure.
So, so I finished up at Chandler Gilbert, put me right into ASU, went to ASU, and then during that time, I was like, what do I want to be? What do I want to do? Blah, blah. I kind of always knew I wanted to do private practice because I love people's stories. Like when I watch a movie, no matter how bad it is, I want to see the end, even though I know how it's going to end. Right? So I want to be a part of people's journeys. A lot of times with dietitians, they'll go work in a clinical settings like a hospital or things like that, and patients don't want to see you. They don't care. You're just, doing tube feeds and things like that. But I wanted to be a part of someone's journey. Right? And the other thing most people don't think about is actually being an outpatient dietitian. If you do your job right, it's more psychological. So we could use a little bit more psychology classes, which would be good. And when I was in school, I actually looked at double majoring.
Oh, wow.
But then it was going to be another 2 years. My husband's like, I might kill you. So,
Is the schooling for registered dietitian pretty intense?
yeah, I mean, biochem, organic chem.
Okay.
So typically, we always joked that organic chemistry was kind of the weed out program. If you can't pass organic chem, you really just can't keep going. Because if you can't pass organic chem, you can't do biochem, right? So we always called it the weed out class because we're like, if you can't pass that. And I had people that I went to school that took it 3 or 4 times.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. So if you can't pass that, you can't move on, right? So that's why we call it the weed out program. But, but anyway, yeah. So it's a 4-year degree now. As of 2024, it's actually a master's is required. Okay. So as I was finishing up schooling, a lot of that requirement kind of came out, and so a lot of schools and internships that I dealt with, they were starting to figure out, how do I get a master's program to go with this? Right. Because the way it worked too is there was 2 different paths you could do for your internships. You have to get your bachelor's. It has to be, you have certain classes that you have to take in order to be part of what they call the didactic program. So you could get your undergrad in anything, but you still have these didactic classes you have to take. So kind of similar like med school. Yeah. In order to get a med school, you could have had, a bachelor's in underwater basket weaving, but you still have to take these classes in order to qualify for med school. Yeah. So it was similar. You couldn't do an internship until you completed those courses. Okay. So luckily for me, ASU, a lot of these schools, they just build it into their undergraduate. Right. And so I didn't have to take extra classes. It was my second time back at school. So I didn't finish the first time because I went into restaurant management. I was like, I don't need school. I was traveling. I didn't have time for school. So I kind of dropped out. And none of my classes really transferred except for electives. And I was like, for real, I got to retake English 101 and 102. This is killing me. Right. But it actually was really good because it taught me more about research, which was good. But anyway, so when you're done with your undergrad at the time, then you have to match for an internship. So you have to apply. It's kind of almost similar to med school where you have to match. I didn't actually match my first round. And as soon as I didn't match, because I really hadn't applied to a lot of programs, because having a family, I was limited on where I could go because I didn't want to leave my family.
Right. Makes sense.
So it kind of limited me. So I only really applied to one internship program, and I had already talked to them, and it was kind of like I was a shoo-in because I kind of knew somebody that knew somebody. The interview went really well, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't get in, which was really weird because the person that I had contact with, I asked her, I was like, could I have done something different? She's like, I don't actually know why you didn't get in. But the way that they matched back then was kind of weird. So anyway, I didn't match, but I reached out. So after match, there's during that week, you can apply to internships that didn't fill their spots. Right. But I actually came across an internship that had expanded their spots. They got approval. I think they had approval originally for 10 spots, and now they had approval for 30. So I was like, mad dash, before next match day, because it was like, I think match day was like Monday, and then it was like Thursday or something. So I got into that program.
Yeah.
So there's different, at the time there were different programs. It's called distance, which meaning you have to find your own preceptors, or you were in a program like ASU, but they only had like 6 spots.
Oh, okay.
But they find all your rotations for you.
I see.
But I already knew I wanted to do a distance program since the very first nutrition class I took, because they had speakers come in and had done a distance program. The distance program would allow me more flexibility with my family. So I already knew I wanted to do that, but I was older, right? A lot of people that I was going to school with were younger. It was the first career, blah, blah, blah. So they're like, oh, I want somebody else to do this for me. And I was like, actually, I want to work with the people I want to work with.
Right.
So
is it just like you picking people versus like the school design? Yeah. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, which is a lot more difficult to find preceptors, but because I was older, I already had a couple rotations already set in stone of who I wanted to work with, and I'd already talked to them while I was in school, because I knew that's the route I wanted to go. The biggest piece was the clinical piece. So it's really hard to get a clinical rotation for a dietitian, especially here in the state of Arizona, because if you're not in a program like ASU, U of A, they have all the they've already contracted with all the hospitals. They've taken up. Okay. Yeah, it's really interesting. The cool thing is now the way the internship works since COVID, working with a private practice now counts towards a clinical rotation.
Oh, that's cool.
So we do get a lot of interns, especially from GCU.
Yeah.
Because they haven't already contracted, because ASU already did.
Right.
And they just actually completed their qualifications for the didactic program, so it's kind of new for them still, but anyway, so I did my internship, and for dietetics, your internship without the master's you had to pay for out of pocket. So basically it was 1,200 hours, you worked for free and you paid for it.
Wow.
So basically I worked for free for a year,
and
then had to pay money to my program so that way I could be a dietitian.
What a deal.
I know, it's like, it's definitely a commitment, and I'm like, who can I borrow $10,000 from? So not counting your school debt you had from your undergrad, right? At least with a master's program, now it's rolled in and you can get financial aid for it, but you couldn't get financial aid for a internship at the time.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So it was it's a lot. Like, it's hard to get in, to be honest with you. And it was very competitive at the time. It's a little less competitive now. We can talk about that later. But anyway, so you do that, and then you have to sit for an exam. And then you have, continuing education that you have to do every year. So anyway, and the exam is not easy. It's a SMART test, and a lot of people don't pass it the first or second time. So it's really interesting.
So similar to like LSAT or those different big tests that you do.
Or like medical boards, right? We just don't have as much, right? So, so I did that, and then I actually freaked out because in one of my internship rotations, I was with a student that I'd, been students with before. And she already had a job. She hadn't sat for her exam. And I was like, wait, you can get a job without sitting for your exam? I thought you had to wait.
Right.
So I was like, so then I'm freaking out, because like, should I be getting a job? What should we do? So anyway, so I got a job right out, as soon as I finished my internship. I started literally the next day. Like, I think I finished my internship on a Friday. I started work on a Monday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I worked for a nonprofit for a little while, and it was a nonprofit that I'd volunteered at, worked at, blah, blah, blah. They had an opening, and so I took it. And then I was like sitting there, and I was like, this doesn't feel like what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
And then I was like, oh yeah, I want to do private practice, blah, blah, blah. So I worked for them for about 6 months. In that time, I started like putting things together for my private practice. One of the things is at the time before, because this is before COVID, insurance would not cover if you had to do face-to-face.
Oh, okay.
There was no telehealth. That was not, they didn't cover that. That was cash pay.
Interesting.
So, and I knew I wanted to take insurance because then I could help more people. Right. And so back to your original question, I could go on and on about how the business came about, and we can go back to that if you want, but I just wanted to help people.
Yeah.
And that was like a big struggle as a business owner, especially when I just want to help people.
Yeah. My
husband's like, so you have an overhead.
Like, you have to make money.
You got to make money. And I'm like, but I just want to help people, So learning that was hard as a business owner, of like, you have a lot of imposter syndrome. You don't think your services are worth anything. I actually joined a mastermind group and had a business coach for a little while, because I was just like, it's common, especially for women. We're like, we just want to help, and we just want to whatever, and we're not assertive in asking for more money and things like that. And so that just really helped me with that. And so it was good resource for me to have. But
yeah,
yeah,
there's a lot of it's hard. Well, one, it's hard to tell people no, but then it's like, you know, especially when it starts getting down to, well, who's your ideal client? Well, technically it's everybody, but then it's like, well, technically, no, it can't be everybody, you know?
Right. If you're servicing everyone, you're servicing no one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that became part of the problem too, is like, you know, especially in dietetics, you're like, niche down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, but I want to help everybody.
Right.
Right. So it's like, okay, how do I help everybody?
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of how we did it. And really with insurance, it dictates who gets covered.
Yeah.
Right. Like what box do you have to fit in to be covered? But services are covered, which is really cool. Most people don't know that nutrition therapy is actually covered by insurance. Pretty much 98% of the plans, I can't really think of any that don't cover have that benefit, but it just depends on what box you have to fit in order for it to be covered.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So what how has growing the business, like, when did you start the business?
We've been in business 8 years, so 2018.
2018, okay. So
in
right
May.
a couple years before COVID. How was that? Like, with
Fascinating.
yeah, because I would assume a lot of businesses struggled. Some businesses did great. But yeah, what was it like?
You have to pivot.
Yeah.
You have to pivot. Like, we've always had the capability. Our platform that we use, our electronic medical records, is an EMR, always had the capability to do video and telehealth. But it was weird.
Yeah.
People wanted to come in person, all these things, right? COVID hit because I was a healthcare professional. I was allowed to stay open, which was awesome so we pivoted immediately. And instead of canceling patients, we were like, hey, let's, I stayed up on legislature about being able to being reimbursed for telehealth, and that changed pretty quickly. So I stayed on top of that. And so we were just like, yeah, we can still see you, you know what I mean? Kind of a thing. And then after a while, people got tired of being at home. They're like, can I just come in? I'm all, yep, we're here anyway. Come on in. So we actually wound up seeing a lot of people face to face because they were just like, I have got to get out of my house.
Right.
So it was kind of like a little bit of escape for them instead of like, doing a video or whatever or on the phone. So it was fine, but you do have to pivot. Like, you can't just be like, a bug on your back and legs flying in the air and be like, I don't know what to do. So you have to pivot or you'll go out of business.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I think a lot of people, it makes sense. People were freaking out and they thought, oh, this is it. This is the end. Like, we just need to bunker down. But, that doesn't usually play too well, especially if you're owning a business and running a business. And what, like, are there a lot of dietitians in the Valley? Like, I've not seen a lot. Or is it kind of a unique thing? Because you were mentioning it was pretty competitive, and then you mentioned it's not as much anymore. So what's the reasoning for that?
So if you want to go back, like, if you're on the East Coast, dietitians are everywhere.
Okay.
It's because it's the West Coast. It's a slower. We kind of do things a little slower on the West Coast, especially when it comes to healthcare, things that we're doing. So if you go back east, you Google them; they're all over the place.
Really?
Huh. And they all take insurance. Here, when I first started, there was like one person that had been in business 13 years prior to me. She was kind of like the pioneer here in Arizona specifically. And after that, so there are other dietitians in the Valley. They are hard to find. A lot of them do eating disorders and do cash pay. So that's where it's tricky. I would say it's starting to become more common for dietitians to take insurance. But I saw a need, and then so that's why I was like, I'm taking insurance. I can help more people. Right. There's not that barrier of like, oh, I can't afford it and whatever. But I'm still even now educating doctors on like, hey, benefits cover this, because they don't want to send their patient to somebody that's going to be cash pay. Right. Like they're billing insurance to see that patient. A lot of doctors really think that it's cash pay only. Right. And so that's not the case. And so it's just like, no, your insurance covers that. And, I work with different businesses, or I'm emailing cities or whatever. Like, this is the benefit for your employees, right? So just trying to get the word out, and that's why I do a lot of wellness fairs and just do a lot of outreach in general, because I just want, even if they're not going to use us specifically, I don't care. I want just the field in general to grow. So that was one of my goals. Like, the big two was like helping other people, and how do I grow the profession, right? How do I let people know that there's this whole world where people can get the help that they need and have the insurance cover it, right? So it's just, insurance is scary to people, really, to be honest with you. It's a lot. But for a dietitian, a solo practitioner, it's a little bit of a learning curve. There's way more resources now than there was when I first started. I was on the phone a lot. like calling insurance and finding out what I need to do and, you know,
Right.
do all the things. So when I started, I literally was one man band, right? Like
Right.
making my own appointments, I'm calling insurance, I'm billing, and I'm learning,
Yeah.
right? Which good for me. Like I love to learn, so give me a challenge, let me learn how to do this. And so now I'm like teaching other people how to do it, or you know, bringing on more dietitians so that way we can help more people. Because at some
Right.
point I maxed out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've got to do projections and be like, okay, at what point do I max out? But the first year was really pretty lonely. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to doctor's offices and letting them know I'm there. It takes a long time for insurance to credential you. It's anywhere from 30 to 90 days. So that's a long time. So you can't even get paid until
Yeah.
that's done. Right.
Yeah.
So just a lot of challenges there. And I think it's becoming more known because I'm starting to see actually like solo practitioners here in the States that, you know, taking a couple insurances, kind of getting their feet wet, those kind of things. So, yeah, it's not well known in the Valley. It's just in Arizona. There's just not a lot of us.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because that's like just hearing from what you know you're saying. It's like there's such a need, but
Right.
you know.
And that's because most of the time, like even when I first went to school, there were two options. You either went into clinical, which is the hospital setting, or you went into food service, which is basically
Okay.
school nutrition.
Yeah.
I saw the possibilities for other things. It took my husband a long time to kind of actually catch up, but once he caught up, he actually was out. He used to travel for work, and he was out to dinner with work friends, whatever. And their waitress was going to school to be a dietitian, and she was saying all the things she was going to do, and like the light bulb went off for him, and he came home. He's like, "Oh my gosh, you're going to make $1 million because you can do all these things." And I was like, "Oh, well, I don't care about the $1 million, but yes, look at all these things that we can do."
Yeah.
And really, the field of dietetics is very vast now. You've got media dietitians, so ones that are like, you know, going on news stations or writing
Right.
articles. You know, you've got people who are chefs, you know, and they're doing meal prep. And so really the nice thing about dietetics is really nobody knows what you do.
Right.
So you can kind of do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Right? You're not pigeonholed into like, this is what you do.
Yeah.
So, you know, since I was in school, like other people started to see that there's other things you can do besides just clinical and food service.
Interesting. Interesting. So it's really kind of a growing field in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah, it's only been around about 100 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. And I would assume, and you kind of mentioned this earlier, the information is always kind of, so you really kind of have to stay on top of your game. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I get someone like you who's like 2 months ago, all of a sudden now people ask me about peptides.
Yeah.
Right? Or I remember when macros came out, my neighbor's like, "What do you think of macros?" And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean? What do I think about macros?" So macros, it's macronutrients, protein,
Right.
carbs, fats. I was like, "Your body needs them?" I don't understand the question, right?
Yeah.
Or then my other neighbor was like, "Why do I keep seeing net carbs on everything?"
Right.
So then I'm like, "Oh, is net carbs?" Because I'm not buying processed foods, so I don't know what
Right.
it says that on there. So then I have to look that up. Or a new fad diet comes out, now I got to look that up. Or a documentary comes out about like eating all plants, and someone's like, comes in and they're like, "I want to be all plant based." I'm all, "Do you like meat?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I have to like, okay, now I got to go watch that documentary, right? So
Right.
you do have to stay up on it,
Yeah.
or you're just not able to keep up. And information is coming so fast, especially with AI.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I bet. Because it seems like a lot of it, too, is just, I didn't even think of that, but the media and the information out there that people just read, maybe that is or isn't true or is undereducated on, right? So then you're kind of either combating that or adding it to what you're doing.
Or finding out, where did that come from?
Right, right.
Why did you hear that? And why am I hearing it from multiple people? Where is this stemming from?
Yeah.
You know, and doing the research there and then researching that, why it's, you know, what
Yeah.
it is.
Do you find that a lot of the misconceptions usually come from like consumer-based, like trying to sell products? Is that
Oh,
seems
yeah.
like-
Especially if it's a supplement, too. It's like, oh,
yeah.
I saw this supplement, especially the older population.
Yeah.
Saw this older you know, on this commercial. What do you think? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Kind of thing. But I feel like the younger generation is trying to educate themselves
Yeah.
first, which is kind of nice and refreshing. The older population is still like waiting for someone to tell them what to do.
Yeah. It's definitely a, you know, you go to like your doctor, or you listen to the professional, and they'll
Right.
tell you.
I trust
yes.
everything that you say. I'm not going
Yes.
to go do my own research. Yeah.
What type of supplements, like, for the most part, supplements pretty good? Are they kind of overrated, overhyped?
Yeah. So I'm actually, when I first started, I was anti-supplements only because
Yeah.
my experience had been kind of like snake oil salespeople,
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean? So I had to really, again, educate myself to understand. We actually use supplements on a regular now because now I understand.
Sure.
Right? The biggest thing is third-party testing. That is like my biggest thing that I tell people about. Like if they're asking me about a supplement brand, if they're sitting in front of me and I have time to research it with them, I'll look it up. There's a website called nsf.org, consumer something. Anyway, these third-party testing places. So making sure that it's a good quality product and that it's been third-party tested.
Yeah.
Now there are certain brands that I've already vetted.
Sure.
So I tend to stick to those because I already know they're good quality. It's less work for me to have to go figure it out. Maybe
Right.
this one has the product I need or it doesn't, and then I go to this, you know what I mean? Because they don't always have the same exact. Or maybe the delivery system or the dosage is different, so I'll choose one over another. But what I found is kind of like what we were talking about before is like, a patient will go to their doctor and like, I'm not sleeping.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's Ambien, here's whatever, right? What typically most people don't know is a magnesium deficiency actually presents as not sleeping, so insomnia, constipation, and anxiety. Right? So,
Interesting.
and the reason being is we could eat a ton of foods that have magnesium in them, which is great, but our food sources aren't as rich as they used to be. And then sometimes we have an absorption problem.
Yeah.
Right? And so, you're seeing all these people with anxiety too, and it's like, well, is it because they're magnesium deficient? I mean, look at our diet. We're not eating leafy greens and, those nuts and seeds and things that have those in them. So there's a deficiency there. And so, I'll use magnesium a lot, depending on what the person's problem is, not sleeping, constipation, even anxiety, but there are different forms of magnesium. And so that's
Right.
what gets tricky is the consumer goes to Costco and they're like, oh, this is magnesium, cool.
Yeah.
But there's like over 20 types
Right.
of magnesium. So,
Yeah.
and they're all used in your body differently. So you could take the 3 magnesiums I usually recommend the most are going to be magnesium citrate, glycinate, and then threonate.
Right.
You can take all 3 at once. You just have to be careful because there's a toxicity level.
Right.
But consumers probably don't know that,
Yeah.
right? And so if you get a good quality product, you're going to need less of that than you will of maybe, no offense to Costco, I love Costco, but maybe it's 400 milligrams when
Yeah.
really you could do 120 milligrams as a better quality product.
Yeah.
It might be a little bit more expensive, but it's a better quality product.
Right.
So there's a lot you can do with supplements, which is really interesting. There's not a lot of supplements like herbs and things like that are going to have an effect on medications you're taking. So we do have to know that too. It's like if I'm going to tell somebody to take magnesium is definitely not a problem, but there are certain like St. John's wort that interfere with other medications and things like that. So you just have to be careful
Right.
when doing that. But again, you have to educate yourself.
Do you find that magnesium seems to be the biggest one for people, or do you think or what do you think's typically the biggest deficiency people have?
Well, magnesium and vitamin D actually, which is really
Yeah.
weird. Like 50% globally deficient.
Wow.
Here in the States, I'd have to go back and look because I actually did a presentation on it for a corporation, but I think it was like Arizonans were like 83% or something deficient.
Really?
Yeah, and you're like, oh, wait, don't I get vitamin D from the sun?
Yeah. Aren't we the sunshine state or something
But
like
guess
that?
what everybody does when they're here and it's hot? We don't go outside.
Yeah.
We just don't. You know what I mean? It's too hot, so we're like, need to be in the air conditioning, so we're not just getting our vitamin D exposure.
Right.
So, and there's also, we actually convert vitamin D in our kidneys, and glyphosate, which is in the wheat, actually inhibits it competes. And so that can sometimes be a problem why we're not converting it also.
Interesting. I didn't know about the glyphosate. Aren't they trying to get off glyphosate? That's kind of what they're headed
hoping.
towards. Yeah, because it's not. It
Yeah,
does
because
damage to
there's,
the nutrients,
wheat and gluten is like, the intolerance is on the rise, the allergies are on the rise, celiac's on the rise. I remember years ago, the first time I met somebody, I was in school. Actually, I wasn't even in school. We had a patron come into the restaurant, like her mom had called and she's like, my daughter's celiac, we need to find something she needs. So I literally spent I told her, I'm like, let me call you back. I'm going to go read all the labels. so I had to read all the labels of all the food. And so she would come in, a couple times a month because she knew it was safe. I made sure we wiped everything down. And so back then it was like, I've never even heard of celiacs.
Right.
Right. And now it's it's rampant.
Yeah.
Right. Autoimmune's on the rise, all these things. So
Is that just because people are more aware, or because they're? Yeah, Kel. That's fine. It's fine. Hers is the one that matters. Mine doesn't really matter.
I was gonna say, but
Yeah.
yeah, you're full.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. Is that just because we're more aware of it now, and then people hear about it and they're like, oh, I think I have that, or is it because over time it's now just the impact is hitting?
I think it's both. Yeah. I think it's over time. And then we're more aware.
Okay, so a little bit of both.
Yeah, I mean, It's interesting to even watch even since COVID. So COVID was fascinating to have people come in the office,
Yeah.
didn't have a single food allergy, they get COVID, they're literally allergic to everything. Right? So
Really?
that doesn't necessarily even have to do with the food. It's just like COVID itself, right? But we're seeing also a rise in type 1 diabetes.
Really?
Yep, which is also autoimmune. So just out of
that's
nowhere.
autoimmune?
It is autoimmune. So your body just attacks, right? And so
I've never heard that before. That's
yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like Crohn's is autoimmune, colitis is autoimmune, you have MS, all these things are autoimmune, right? Your body's attacking itself. And basically it goes to, if we're going to talk about gut health, right? Leaky gut or gut intestinal permeability. And so I kind of started to notice this was a problem. And so then I started researching. We actually do gut testing in our office, and we've seen some really great results from testing their stool and testing their blood and seeing what's going on and then giving them a protocol to follow.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically what happens is in your gut, right, it's tight junctured. So it's protecting your blood from anything that's in the GI tract.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Something comes along and makes it mad. So what we often see is there's a life event that kind of starts this process for people. Because when I'm like asking them, okay, so when did this start bothering you? Oh, it was 12 years ago. Okay, what happened 12 years ago? Oh, I got a divorce. My dog died. Whatever, right?
Yeah.
There's always some huge life event. And that's just, can you say it's causation? I don't know, but there's definitely a correlation for sure. And I think it's the stress level and things like that. So anyway, when this tight juncture gets upset, it swells and separates. And so whatever's in the gut or whatever, in your GI tract is now entering your bloodstream. Now there's a foreign invader there, right? So we see a lot of people with thyroid issues. So everybody's body is different on what part of the body it's gonna attack.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it can be food allergies. You start with one, then you get another one. You know what I mean? It tends to be the foods you're only eating because that's all your body's exposed to. So anyway, your body's going to have that natural reaction and see it as a foreign invader, and so it's going to attack some part of your body.
Interesting.
Right? It's typically your thyroid and your GI are kind of the most common.
Yeah.
But we are seeing a rise in like type 1 diabetes.
Interesting. So how do you? Because I'm just thinking. Now that you're saying that, I'm thinking of people I know, and I'm like, so how do you even solve that?
Yeah.
Especially like I've heard, I think a lot of women specifically, thyroid is a big issue. And then you hear information like about the gut and its interaction, and I don't even know what thyroid medication does, and I know there's like hypothyroidism and whatever the other one is, hypo
and hyper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really don't know what they do or anything like that, but how do you even help somebody
Fix
with
like that? Yeah. So there's a saying that all immunity starts in the gut, and that's true, right? Our gut microbiome, like just so many things that it does, regulating blood sugar, helping with mental health. It's basically these bugs are talking to your brain, right? They're talking to your gut. They're putting off different minerals and things like that, right? So they're really super important. It's really cool that we're doing lots of research, and it'll be interesting to see what that research looks like. But when you heal the gut, your body will fix itself. Right? So it's actually a really long process, and it's really difficult. What I will say, I can talk to a patient and already know that they probably need to get off gluten and wheat, right? But the test is going to show them that, and most people will wait for that. So you have to get rid of the offending things that are irritating it, right? It could literally be stress for people. Like we can do all this stuff to heal the gut, but if you're still stressed out of your mind, it's just going to happen again. Right? So you'll heal it for a short time, but you're going to have the same problem, right? So you have to decide, and that's what the gut testing is looking at, is like, what's their inflammation looking like in the gut? What is their, do they have like really bad pathogenic bacteria, right? Because what pathogenic bacteria do is they basically usually attach to somewhere along the GI tract, attach to it, create a film around it, colonate, but people don't know. Like they maybe got a bug a year ago, and now it's really presenting as big symptoms. So they don't know. So they don't remember, right? So that can be the problem. So you have to get rid of those guys. If you're eating foods that are like irritating it, if you're stressed, you got to manage that. So it's a lot of stuff to heal the gut, right? So once you kind of identify those are things you start to work on. But if it's like a pathogenic bacteria or SIBO or anything like that, you got to get rid of that. But get rid of things like gluten and wheat that are offending it. You can do further testing to see if other things you're sensitive to can be contributing, but those are the two big ones. And it's mostly because with glyphosate, what it's meant to do with the bugs, it's a weed killer, right? It's also used for pest control.
Right.
And so what it does is it goes inside the bug and basically kills them from the inside out.
Interesting.
So I don't know why we think that that's okay for humans.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not. So whatever.
So is it killing the inside bacteria as well as kind of in essence?
It's not the bacteria. It's your GI lining.
Oh, okay.
And so what happens is then that GI lining opens, and now we're having gluten and wheat enter the bloodstream, and we're attacking it. The interesting thing about the thyroid is your body can't tell the difference between gluten and the thyroid hormone. So it's confused.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to get rid of the offender. The interesting thing too about when we create an antibody to gluten, it's really called antizonulin. And my husband's like, that's got to be a made up word, but that's what it's called. Anyway, when you create an antibody to it, it takes about 6 months for that antibody to leave your system, but you have to be 100%
Right.
gluten and wheat free, no cross contamination. Well, if you're having a problem, but your family isn't having a problem, your kids still want their goldfish.
Right.
Right? You can't use the same toaster. Wheat's in everything. Like you have to read labels. You have to not. So it's really difficult to get to that point. But you can kind of do some modifications and do the best that you can.
Right.
People going off gluten and wheat is like, you literally will cry. Some people actually will create, it's called, oh my gosh, like morphine. So it's like they get a high from eating gluten and wheat, and the test that we do looks at that.
Really?
Yeah. So literally if they go off gluten and wheat, they're going to have withdrawals.
Wow.
So it's really, really interesting. So you have to like remove the stuff,
Yeah.
right, that's irritating it, and then heal the gut. So it is possible. I mean, I have a patient, she has colitis, she wound up having SIBO. She had colitis for a really long time. We did gut testing, we did a protocol. She was good for about 2 years, and then she forgot to keep doing the things.
Yeah.
So she's now back to see me again. So now we're trying to like get ahead of it instead of behind it, but she was really bad, you know. But yeah, you can heal the gut. It just takes time.
How is there any way, like if somebody's having an issue and let's say they go through the protocol, heal the gut, I'm assuming they can't go back to those habits that cause the problem, can they? Or is it?
Some people can go back to gluten and wheat. I usually just recommend they don't.
Yeah.
Because how long before it's bothering you again?
Right.
But it is interesting because like I've been gluten and wheat free for almost 4 years, but I go to Europe and I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I've heard that from other people before too. I even have a friend who has celiac, and she's like, I actually do fine over there. It's just they're processing it differently.
Yeah.
Right? And if you think about too, my husband went down to downtown Mesa and went to Proof. I don't know if you've ever been down there.
Yeah.
They make bread there.
Yeah.
It smells delicious.
What's it called?
Proof.
Down in downtown Mesa.
Downtown Mesa, yeah, it's right next to Tacos Chihuas. He was
make a
down there
stop.
for somewhere, I don't remember, some business, something, or I was talking to the owner, and he was talking about how they take the normal amount of time to make bread. You know, Europe, again, if you've ever been there, I mean, literally people are buying fresh bread every day, right? So the process of breaking down the gluten also, when you're fermenting it, takes time. I don't remember what the time was. Let's say it's 7 days. But the way we manufacture bread, we're manufacturing it in a day.
Right.
Right. So we're not allowing the gluten to break down. And so people are also having a problem with like being able to break that down.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's just, we're just a fast, like, we need it now.
Right.
Which has caused other issues.
I see. So we're really kind of just paying the price for
Later down the line.
convenience. Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about.
It's interesting.
But you do hear that a lot about people going to a different country or back to Europe, and they can eat the pasta, they can eat the bread, and it's like
yeah. My poor husband, when we went to Italy a few years ago, we took our youngest, and she's also gluten and wheat free. She would get migraines
Oh, really?
as soon as as soon as it cleared out of her system.
Yeah.
No more migraines.
Interesting.
But so we were going to Italy because she was graduating high school, and that's not why we went. We were already going. We were just taking her along. 'Cause she's the youngest kid, right?
You're like tie it together.
I was like, we'll just throw you in there. Whatever. I'm not going to leave you home for 2 weeks, right?
Trip,
So yeah.
well.
So anyway, he was really worried because we were going to do all gluten free when we went because we researched it. They've, especially in Italy, you could bring in your own gluten free pasta and they'll cook it and whatever. So
Oh, really? Wow.
yeah, we were going to do that, and then I was like, I talked to a friend that was celiac, talked to a couple other people, and they're like, no, it's fine, it's fine. So I was like, I'm going to try it. My daughter's like, I'm going to do it too. My husband's like, no, because if she gets a migraine, we're out for 3 days.
Right.
Right. And so I was just like, for me, it presented in my stomach. So I would know right away. So I was like, well, just first meal, we'll just see how it goes. I'll experiment. If my stomach hurts, we'll just be done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it wound up being fine. So.
Wow.
But I would say now I used to not I used to worry about cross-contamination. I was very strict about it. And now I'm like, oh, meh.
Yeah.
It's not bothering me, likely because I haven't retested, but my gut is probably healed. And so it has that strong barrier in there to protect it. And so it's not bothering me in small doses.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I'm not like going around eating just regular bread, right?
Yeah.
I'm just not worrying that like, okay, I had this gluten-friendly pizza that it was cross-contaminated with other. I'm not
right.
really worried about it.
Yeah.
So I don't stress about it as much, but it's 4 years.
Did you get involved with yours more out of necessity or more out of experimentation?
Interesting thing enough is when I was looking at gut testing, my youngest daughter, she's always had gut issues like her whole life. And so she became my guinea pig. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to try this test on you. Okay, let's see. You know what I mean? So she was my guinea pig. So I was going gluten-free originally for her. And then I was like, I should probably get myself tested too, because prior to that, earlier in that year, I had a patient who had thyroid issues, and it was really recommended for, them to be off gluten and wheat.
Yeah.
And so I did an elimination diet. I put a protocol together for her for a month, and I was like, I'm going to do it with you. Because let's see what this feels like, right? Because doing an elimination diet is really hard. So it's easier to like prep people for it if you've done it yourself.
Yeah.
So I did it with her for the month, and basically gluten, dairy, all the allergens, whatever free. And I used to drink soda, and you can't do caffeine when you're doing an elimination diet.
Oh.
And I felt amazing. I didn't need caffeine. I didn't need a nap. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. Kind of back to the original story, right? I ate really well, and I was like, oh, I feel amazing. So at that time, I kind of started letting, like after that, I put gluten back in my diet, not heavily, but just a lot less. And so by the time I was doing it for my daughter, I think we did it in like October. And I was like, what if I should get myself tested? Because I also had GI issues.
Yeah.
A lot of it had to do with sugar substitutes.
Sure.
So I had already eliminated that. So I
Like
stopped.
stevia or like
No, not stevia specifically, but like erythritol.
Okay. Had to clear one more thing. We're good now. Where were we?
Talking about gut bugs, gut testing.
Yeah, glucose and gluten and things like that, I think.
Gluten, yeah.
Yeah, gluten. Did I say glucose?
Yeah. You're
gluten.
good. You're good.
So I want to ask you kind of one final question, at least. I know we were kind of cut off there, so we got off our train of thought. But if there's one thing because you work with a lot of people, helping them, and you've made that pretty clear, like helping people has been the primary reason. What would you say is like the one piece of advice you'd give people? And I'm sure there's so much advice you could give, but what's the one thing for people listening, people my age and older, what's the piece of advice you'd give them to help them kind of either take that step in their health or take that step in their journey? Because not only have you helped people with their health, but even just your example of starting a business and taking those big leaps, I think people struggle with that as well. So trying to find their path and their purpose.
Yeah. So because we are so hard on ourselves and we expect perfection, just culturally speaking, whether that's diet or just regular culture, is being 1% better. So it's really interesting. There was actually a conference talk from our church, and that's where I found it. But really, it stems from it's a cycling team. Gosh, like maybe in the 60s, where they like dead last in the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
And then they had a coach come along, and so tell me if you remember the story, but coach come along, and he just literally was like, okay, this year we're going to improve the helmets. This year we're going to improve this, and and this technique, and this thing, and this. And so basically every year they were just a little bit better, and then eventually they were, winning the Olympics year after year after year.
Yeah.
So, just having that 1% better. Am I 1% better than I was yesterday in whatever area? Right? That could be my sleep. That could be health. That could be yelling at your kids. Whatever. Are you 1% better? And even better than that, if it's a holiday, were you 1% better than when we were last year? Right? And most people are like, oh, I think I'm actually 10% better. I'm like, awesome, right? But if you're like, I only need to be 1% better the next day, that's an attainable goal, right? If you get to be 3 or 5% better, then that's awesome. But really like teaching people to celebrate their wins, because we're so focused on negative all the time.
Yeah.
They're like, how can we turn that into a positive? Let's focus on the wins. And especially my patients and when the other dietitians that I work with, that's what I've taught them as they've come on, is like, celebrate the win when the first thing they come in. What did you do that was successful? Because a lot of people will be like, hey, I didn't do my food log and I didn't want to come in today. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about what worked.
Yeah.
Right? What went well? Awesome. That is amazing, right? And just teaching people to retrain their brain to celebrate those wins, and just being that 1% better.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think that's so key. And like you said, I think we get so caught up in the negative loop.
Yep.
And I mean, there's a lot of things pulling us down that loop. So if we can focus on the positive, that makes all the difference.
Yeah. Great.
Wendy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah,
I
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Where can people find information on you, what you do, your business, everything?
Yep. So literally azdietitians.com. So it's all T's. Most people spell dietitian with C's, but it's all T's. So you can find us there. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as well, under, I think it's a Wendy Green _azdietitians.com. But really there's a lot of information on the website in and of itself. So I'm sure if you Google me, it'll pop up, Wendy Green. So you can find us there. And we do lots of different things. So you'll see on the website we do a lot of wellness too. So wellness for corporations and different municipalities and things like that too. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, she's great. I've been working with her too, so I can put that in there as well. But yeah, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Awesome.
Cool.